Okay, welcome to Bristol. We're going to start our weekend here with a self-guided art tour that Jamie got from the Lonely Planet. And right as we pop out of our hotel, we see St. John's Church in the old city walls. Bristol's cathedral is stunning. The 12th through 15th century Norman and Gothic architecture take your breath away with soaring arches and beautiful windows. However, this legacy has largely been overshadowed by 17th, 18th, and 19th century evils. Bristol's port anchored a corner of the slave trade, and many of the men who profited from it flowed money into the town and church. Modern Bristol is consciously seeking to address this terrible legacy. The informational panel behind me talks about the window up above, which is built in honor of Thomas Daniel, a wealthy merchant in the 18th and 19th centuries, who was a prominent merchant in the West Indies, tremendous slave owner when slavery was abolished in England in the 19th century. He had 4,300 human beings that he owned. He was paid out the equivalent of nearly 200 million pounds of today's money for his loss. This chapel, with its beautiful star-shaped niches and decorated Gothic window, is marred by this monument to Robert Coddington and his family, who kept hundreds of slaves on their sugar plantation in Barbados. By clearly condemning its own terrible mistakes, the church must now try to reconcile the irreparable harm that stains these terrible centuries on the long timeline that reaches back more than 850 years to the original construction of this gem of Norman architecture. Our art tour continues with the first of 3 pieces we'll see by local artist Banksy. The next Banksy on the list is less well known, but strikes a familiar chord for anyone who's ever sought planning permission for anything. There's more than graffiti in Bristol. Public art is everywhere, ranging from this opalescent fountain to this oddly horned bridge. In the old city, the smell of good food permeates the air.
There's Banksy. They have that Indian food place, and you can get the garbanzo beans with the spices on top. It's fantastic.
Center Space is a popular gallery selling prints with a working studio next door that's open to visitors. Lano-cut prints are popular these days, and printmaking, of course, also has some local history in Bristol, which we'll get to later. The Arnolfini Gallery has an exhibit of works by Gary Fabian Miller, who prints directly from life onto Cibachrome paper. Kind of experimental photography, I'm not really clear how it works. M-Shed is a busy, cluttered, kind of catch-all museum of Bristol and Bristol history. It includes artifacts ranging from amazing wooden Gothic doors to yet more context about Bristol's role in the Atlantic slave trade. In 1497, John Cabot sailed to Newfoundland with 18 or 20 guys in a boat that might have looked something like this replica. Key takeaway? It's tiny. Our final Banksy of the day, and my favorite, girl with a pierced eardrum. You see, it's clever because the earring is a fire alarm. A masterpiece of Victorian engineering, Isambard Kingdom Brunel's SS Great Britain was an innovative iron-hulled, screw-powered steamship, in her prime the largest vessel ever built. Able to cross the Atlantic in 14 days, however, she wasn't any faster than contemporary paddle-wheeled ships, and eventually she was relegated to shepherding people back and forth between Australia, finally being converted to sails, and eventually ignominiously being converted to a storage barge for coal.
Got my boarding pass.
Now, it's a cool experience for visitors to walk around, look at the tiny cabins that steamship passengers lived in,
Not this one.
and appreciate how much better it is to cross the Atlantic in an airplane. Walking tour complete, we enjoyed the prolific public art on the way back. This building is sort of the classier version of writing "Wash Me" on the back of a dirty car. This shop right here sells supplies to graffiti artists, cans of spray paint, etc. So our hotel, right across the street here, apparently used to be the print shop of William Morris, who was a designer in the late 19th century who made tapestries and prints and stuff like that, including a tapestry that we got from English Heritage at home that we recognized from the wall of the bedroom. Right across the street from our hotel is this Belgian beer bar called the Strawberry Thief, which is named after one of those prints and has the pattern all over the wall. Same pattern that we have on our wall at home. It's like we never left. The next day we got up early and headed off to the train, past some classic Bristol Byzantine-style architecture popular in the 19th century in Bristol, and caught a train to head off to Cardiff to visit a buddy of mine who lives there. More evidence of Bristol's embrace of its famous street art culture. Prominent local artist Inky painted this about 10 years ago for the train station, and last year painted this one for our hotel. After a quick ride of a little less than an hour, we found ourselves in Cardiff, where we met up with my buddy Alex and headed out to check out the castle. The ancient 11th century Norman castle was built over the ruins of an even older Roman fortification. Then later in the 19th century, Roman-style walls were built on the remains of the original foundation. Later, tunnels within those walls were used as air raid shelters in the Second World War. In the Regimental Museum on site, Alex explained how a goat became the mascot for the unit.
So I wandered onto the battlefield. It's probably freaking the fuck out.
Yeah.
After the castle, Alex took us over to the Natural History Museum, which has an exceptionally good geology section, due no doubt to the local importance of the coal mining industry. You want to touch the oldest rock in the world?
It's hard to believe that the oldest rock right here.
Reconstructed forests of the Carboniferous period, or of course, as we all know them, the coal forests. How many types of coal can you name? Here's at least 6. Any natural history museum worth its salt's got to have a good, healthy dose of dinosaurs, and this one was no disappointment. As evening fell, we headed back to Bristol. Oh, look, you can go stand there and you can be the spray paint can angel. You want to go do that?
No.
So, if the Google Maps description is to be believed, these spray painted walls are all that's left of a Saxon church that was destroyed in World War II. The 15th century tower back there is all that survives. Right behind me is the medieval St. Peter's Church. I believe that central tower that doesn't have a whole lot of windows on it is an old 12th century tower, and most of the church is later 15th century. It was bombed out and destroyed in World War II, and now it's been converted into a war memorial. Bristol Castle is pretty hard to see. Right now I'm just walking in towards what looks like a piece of grass, but behind me is a door that goes down into part of the castle. The castle site is emblematic of just how much things can change in a mere 900 or so years. The castle itself was built in 1088, a Norman fortification, and it stood until the 1600s when it was used as a fortification in the English Civil War, demolished soon after. Then this whole area was developed, became city streets, businesses, etc. World War II came along, 4 years of air raids, annihilated just about everything. Now it's a park. All that's gone. But the remains of the castle, highlighted by archaeologists in the 1980s, are on display once again, what little is left of them. Our last stop on our way out of town was Temple Church. Temple Church is immediately distinctive because of the tower that is visibly leaning. Work on the tower started sometime around 1400, and it promptly started to lean as it was being built. They gradually corrected as they built it, which gave it kind of an odd curvature. The original church on this site was actually round, and you can see the footprint of that original church marked off inside. Here he is, Isambard Kingdom Brunel, famous Victorian engineer responsible for the bridge we didn't go to and any number of other marvels of engineering, and the best insult that I learned all weekend, which is that you have already wasted more of my time than your life is worth. And on that deeply hurtful note, we head home.